let's take a look at stem changing verbs in Spanish. And we're going to focus on 4 particular verbs. We're going to focus on the verb querer, which means to want. So we're going to draw a taco. Maybe you want a taco from Taco Bell. I don't. We're going to focus on dormir, which means to sleep. So let's just draw a bed with some Z's. The next verb is repetir, which means to repeat. So let's draw the repeat symbol. And finally, we have the verb jugar. Okay? And let's just draw an orange basketball to represent the verb to play, jugar. Okay? So the question is, what is the stem of all of these verbs? The stem of these verbs is what you see before the last 2 letters. Okay? Remember, in Spanish, verbs end in either AR, ER, or IR. So the stem is what comes before the last 2 letters. So in this verb here, querer, we're going to have a stem change of E to IE. That means this E is going to change to IE when we conjugate it. The verb dormir is going to have a stem change of O to UE. So this O is going to change to UE when we conjugate it. Repetir is going to have a stem change of E to I. So this E is going to change. And finally, the verb jugar, and the U is going to change to UE when we conjugate it. Okay? So let's conjugate some of these verbs. So we're going to conjugate them in the yo form. And we're going to start off with querer. So we will write Q, U. And now as soon as we see the E in querer, we have to take into account our change. So we're going to write IE. And then we are going to add RO to finish our verb. So now we have quiero. Dormir, we're going to write the D. And now we are going to finish. Well, actually, we're going to take into account the stem change. So we're going to write UE. And now we're going to finish the verb. So we have duermo. The next verb, repetir, we're going to write REP. Now we're going to take into account the stem change, which is I. And we will finish this verb. So we have repito. And the last verb, jugar. Now we're going to take into account the stem change, UE, and finally we're going to finish this last verb, juego. Okay? So these stem changes are true in the yo form, the tu form, the él, ella, and usted form, and the ellos, ellas, and ustedes form. Okay, so we can conjugate these verbs with the stem change in the present tense in these forms. Okay, the only form that we cannot conjugate these verbs with the above stems is in the nosotros or nosotras form. Okay, so when conjugating, do not take into account the stem in the nosotros or nosotras form. Okay, just leave the spelling the way it is. Okay, now there are a group of 4 verbs, just some basic verbs similar to the verb querer, that have an E to an IE stem change. And I'm going to write them in this box over here because when you look at them for the first time, you may ask yourself, well, which E, and do I take into account the stem change? So we have the verb entender, we have the verb preferir, we have the verb despertar, and we have the verb empezar. So now the question is, does the stem change take place in the first E or the second E? Well, these four verbs have a stem change in the second E. Okay, so this E is going to change to IE. This E is going to change to an IE. This E will change to an IE. And this E will change to an IE when you conjugate them in the present tense, except remember the nosotros or nosotras form. Okay, so don't forget this idea. It is not true when we conjugate stem changing verbs in the present tense. If you have any questions, let me know. And once again, hasta luego.